This is West Africa Weekly, a live series brought to you by Riglinks and Arvy where we talk about oil and gas news, projects, and developments that you can sink your teeth into. Here are your hosts, Greg and Arvy. Hey there.
Hey, Greg, how's it going?
It's going good. It's going good. How are you?
Yeah, very well. Thank you. Very well. All is
Marvelous. Well. Marvelous. How's London?
Same old, a bit cold, miserable, nothing to report really. So I'm just having my evening cup of tea. So
cold and miserable and nothing to report.
Exactly. Yeah. I don't know if that's a good way to start the show, but honesty is the best policy.
It is. And it's Friday. And it's 6 o'clock where you're at. So you're lucky that if you catch me at 6 o'clock on a Friday, I'm not having whiskey.
Yeah, so. Exactly. Yeah, you're right.
All right. So U.S. side, it's been a pretty busy week, political wise. So as you can imagine, there's been a few changes with the new administration coming in, but I think that's going to bode well for some of the prices and some of the stability early on. So we'll see.
Cool.
But yeah, so let's do a screen share here and get into the rundown. All right, like we typically do each week, Arvy and I will go through the oil prices. That's your crude and your Brent. This week, we're going to talk about some stuff in South Sudan. Although it's kind of central, it still plays a lot of part into West as it transits or transports a lot of its production West. So it's still a key player. BP and Sonangol, stuff for there in Angola. Maersk and Total in Suriname, and Total and Apache in Suriname. Looks like Suriname's going to be the highlight of today's chat. But anyway, so Arvy, with the have you done any stuff with any stuff with Sonangol in the past?
Actually, so funnily enough, that was my first job. It was actually for BP Angola. So I was actually working on Block 18 at that time. And this was about 15 years ago. Yes, but it seems like a long time ago. So yes, lots of experience.
15 years is definitely a long time ago.
Is that a long time ago?
Yeah.
I'm feeling old now. Thanks.
Me too. I feel the same way. I'm thinking when you said 15, I was trying to think of what I was doing 15 years ago. I was in the Gulf of Mexico 15 years ago. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, quite a lot of experience actually with Sonangol, and quite recently as well with the local content aspect as well. So yeah, lots of experience with Angola.
All right. For our oil prices, looks like for the WTI, it's $52.23, and over to the crude, $55.32, and that's for today, Friday, January the 22nd. Yeah, so that's probably the last you'll see before Monday from your side. But I was speaking with Ryan earlier, and some of the predictions about Brent being up to $65 before the middle of the year.
Okay.
What do you think? Yes? No?
If I'm quite honest with you, I try to remain optimistic, but I'm a bit skeptical right now. So I'm thinking as long as we stay within 60 to 65, it's a good sign. Let it just be for this year with all the rest of the nonsense COVID stuff going on. I think it's, I think we're looking at a good range between 60 and 65, which is good.
That's a very good way to look at it. Although it's funny because you said it one way when you're talking about being optimistic, and then Ryan says he's optimistic and he says it's a different way, but he actually says optimistic so he can sometimes get an argument and get a rise. So Ryan, if you're listening, I know how you do it, and I know the routine here. So
we're gonna have to get Ryan in on the chat as well, perhaps. Yeah,
we will. We need to do an overtime West Africa Weekly one together one day. Yeah, it'd be great. So Arvy, we'll move over to South Sudan. Have you done any done anything with South Sudan or anything coming from South Sudan to West Africa or no?
What's really interesting about about South Sudan is about a couple of years ago, there was a small mid-tier oil and E&P company in London that had asked me to look over some contracts for them. It was actually 2 RFPs for some bidding work. And apart from them getting to bid submission stage and after that, after about 6 weeks of lengthy negotiations in country, nothing really came of it. So I'm not really too sure if South Sudan is going to be a big play going forward. So I have been involved to a certain extent. The only thing I can add is we do know that the power sector in South Sudan is highly subsidized, and there is a huge development scope. And as of last year, we do know that there was a Norwegian company and they had signed an MSA, like a master services agreement with Sudapet in country. So there is definitely some kind of development work going on from the European side into Sudan. But that's about the limitations of my exposure for Sudan anyway.
So South Sudan and Sudan have signed an agreement to increase oil production in South Sudan's northern fields from 170,000 barrels per day to 300,000 barrels per day over the next 3 years. So commencing from 2021, the agreement provides for enhanced bilateral relations by focusing on investment and production as a way to mitigate economic challenges being experienced by both countries. So what I think is happening here is you got, South Sudan and Sudan coming together saying, look, we're both having trouble. We both need the extra cash. So why don't we just share what we're doing here and, make it work for both of us. So, it looks like they're leveraging, their economic value together as a group. So,
yeah. And I think a consideration of the time we're in, I think people have to start putting their political differences aside right now and looking at what's commercially viable.
Totally agreed.
So I think it's a good play for Sudan anyway, definitely.
Sudan aims to leverage its capacity to help South Sudan resolve logistical challenges and increase oil output so as to utilize additional crude from its neighbor to operate the El Abid refinery. So, yeah. It's good. It's good that they're working together.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you got any exposure of Sudan? Have you worked in country or?
No, but I mean, the being as central as it is, I could, when they're talking about resolving logistical challenges, I can just imagine, because if you look at Sudan on the map, it's almost like right in the middle of Africa. So, and how big Africa is anyway. So so it'd be like building a pipeline from New York to the middle of the U.S. So I can imagine the idea, and the logistical challenges they're having. When we say we have an idea, we actually don't have an idea. Because, I mean, whenever they're having to bring everything in by backpacks and mules and helicopters and everything, it just doesn't. It's not a great place you want to play at. So when they're doing developments right there, it takes a lot of money and a lot of time and a lot of effort. And there's got to be something in there. It's got to be something in there valuable enough to put the time into it.
Agreed.
You got to be doing the resources for the country. You got to be doing something in there for the betterment of the people or something.
Right. Yeah, you're right. Absolutely.
It's not like having a yard sale. It's not like putting your stuff out on the shelf and selling. It's not like making a e-commerce store.
No,
selling T-shirts. So
I totally agree with you. If only if it was that simple, Greg. We'd be right in the business. But I agree with you. And I also think, when you look at the kind of investment and the kind of commercial model that these guys use as well, it's got to be commercially viable for investors and shareholders as well. So I think you're right. I think a lot of work probably has been done prior to them launching this new agreement. So
it has to be.
Yeah.
For sure. The other part, and I think we covered a little bit about some of the stuff with some of these leasing, some of the new projects coming up next year. But the next thing on the list was some of our licensing. We made it through a part of this list last year. I don't think we went all the way, but we covered. We didn't cover Somalia. We talked a little bit about South Sudan just now, but on some of the upcoming licensing rounds. So Somalia, it represents one of the few remaining frontier landscapes. Now, we're talking about just Africa in general, not just West Africa, but it's still, when you start talking about the economics, it all still kind of works in the same pattern. But with only 2 exploration wells offshore to date, in 2015, Spectrum configured approximately 20,000 kilometers of long offset 2D seismic data offshore. So they're looking for a potential high quality oil window. And in accordance with some of the findings, Somalia introduced its first ever licensing round. So I can understand them wanting to get in there and get it, but I think they may have come in at a very bad time to toss that. Yeah. So I'm not saying I wish them all the best of luck in the world, but they already have, some issues with security.
Yeah.
They already have a lot of other issues domestically. So to launch a licensing round and kind of with the industry with 2 black eyes and a few and missing a kidney, it's probably going to be a little rough go here. So
yeah, I agree with you. I'm not too sure. I mean, in hindsight, look, I'm great. It's great that they've got the kind of business models and the desire to launch these licensing rounds right now, but in industry, and especially with COVID and the vaccinations coming in play, perhaps their strategy is that, look, industry will get to some sort of normalization scale very soon. So maybe they've taken that kind of opinion where they've thought, if we don't do it now, we'll have to wait another year, or is it better to do it mid-year? It's kind of a strange one, but I get where you're coming from. I agree.
You'd have to ask yourself, when you started writing that up and you said, I think we're going to do a licensing round this year, you'd have to think to yourself, you go, how many bidders are we going to get on this? And you can't, and it's hard. I get it. So when you're kicking off, I mean, you're talking about a place that's only had 2 exploration wells drilled in it to date. That's not a lot.
It's not. I agree.
It's not a lot. You start talking about, you're doing a lot of work in Liberia now too. So there also wasn't a lot of exploration wells drilled in Liberia either over the last 20, 25 years. And so again, when you start talking about how you want to progress with, doing a lot of this work offshore, you have to think about, as we talked about last time, that 2 to 2.5, 3 day turnaround from Takoradi with your gear.
Yeah.
And so when you start talking about licensing grounds and say like Somalia, the infrastructure doesn't exist at all.
I mean, what's interesting?
Where are they getting the gear from? I mean, is it going to come from Asia? I mean,
yeah, I agree, but I'll be interested actually to see the kind of participating companies in this play. Actually,
it makes sense. Who wants to go?
Yeah, exactly, and to see if it may not be the super majors that are involved. It may be kind of mid-tier oil companies and independent companies that come forward. But I think it's going to be an interesting play for Somalia because, as we rightfully said, I don't think it's a great time.
Oh, definitely not. Yeah, I don't know why that one dropped off the list last week. It was there, and I don't know why I didn't even talk about it. We talked about South Sudan.
Yeah.
The new oil and gas bidding round for South Sudan, which comprises 14 oil blocks in northern fields, is expected to boost exploration and development of the country's reserves and attract further investment into the sector. I don't know. I'm waiting for that one too. So,
okay.
When they're already talking about, production at 170, and you go back to what we talked about before, it doesn't. What are they looking at? What kind of comprehensive plan are they looking at for this 14 oil blocks? Are they just saying that, we're just going to bid these out and get these leased, and we don't? I mean, so it's giving mixed signals there from, the production over to leasing of the block. So I'm not exactly sure which one is more important to them, is what I'm saying. Because is it the production going from 170 to 190, or is the oil and gas leases more important there? So I think the leasing is probably the least of the aspect, that they're wanting the production first. So
agreed. Yeah, I think so too.
But the last one on the list is Nigeria. So you have a bit of knowledge there. So the Nigerian authorities are considering a new licensing round for 2021. Why would they not? I mean, it's ready to go. Why would they not have a licensing round ready to go for them?
I think it's really interesting with Nigeria because West Africa, Ghana, and Nigeria has been my scope for quite a while now, and I've helped a couple of companies here put together the bids for the marginal fields currently ongoing. And I think what's really interesting is a couple of weeks back, the government sent some shockwaves through the system, and they've put together a new kind of contracting strategy for the local content side. So they're really encouraging a lot of companies to kind of effectively have some joint venture together to bid for work together. So I don't really know going forward how that's going to work on the contractual side of things, because I don't see a lot of engineering or EPC companies coming together to go and bid, or small IOCs coming and going to bid for a block with a number of parties involved. So I'm keen to see how that will play out, actually, for Nigeria.
Last June, Nigeria launched its first marginal oil field licensing round in nearly 2 decades. So it had 52 marginal fields for which the federal government was yet to announce the winners. That was last year. So,
and even thinking about it, it was actually.
So if they didn't announce the winners, what's the chances of them being no bidders?
I don't know. I'm very optimistic about Nigeria, and the reason is, I'll tell you why, is because having spent time there, liaising with companies and talking to CEOs of engineering companies, you can see the intent and the pace of the way people want to do business. So I'm a bit kind of like, if you would have asked me this question last year, I would have said, Greg, I'm on the fence with this. But I don't feel that way anymore. I feel like, look, this local content directive has got people talking, which is good. And majority, I think the percentage was quite high. I think it was about 80% of companies bidding for the fields were actually outside of Africa.
Of course.
We're talking about European companies here, Americans and Asian companies. So again, it gives you a good indication that there is a lot of investment coming into Nigeria, which is always a good sign.
Well, they had that round in June of 2020. So no announcements yet. So I don't know.
Okay, you're gonna park that because you don't know.
I don't know. No, I don't know what why would they not have some announcements made by now?
Yeah, I agree.
That's my biggest thing. Comment here from Ramon from Spain. What do you think about Namibia and Reconnaissance Energy Africa? So from my side, I think if you haven't looked into some of the stuff Reconnaissance is doing to date, I think we talked about Recon Africa. I think it was last week, Arvy. I think we talked about them. But after we did that show, I went and checked out their stock and what their stock was doing, and some of their plans for the future. And I'm positive on Reconnaissance Energy Africa. They're a little small company, but if I had some time and then some other things to invest, I would go for Recon Africa. So it's a positive for me.
Right. Okay. Funnily enough, I've not done too much. I don't know too much about Reconnaissance Energy, so I think I'm going to have to do a bit of research on them as well.
They're a smaller company, but they some of the things that they're onto right now. They're supposedly found one of the largest basins in Africa. Okay. So one of the new basins, and it's supposed to be the equivalent of the Permian. So they're just now early into the exploration, but go check them out.
Okay, so E&P is very new to them, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Right.
Private company. Well, I say private. I mean that they are trading on the London Stock Exchange, so they are available. But and they were very very cheap. Absolutely, Ramon. Thank you for the comment.
Thank you.
All right. Go over here to BP with Sonangol. This is an older project, but looks like they're just getting kicked off with signing up for the work in the Platina field. So that already represents the development block, which is a tieback to the Plutonio the Greater Plutonio Floating Production Storage and Offloading Unit.
Yeah.
So under this agreement, BP will also receive an extension of its production license for the Greater Plutonio project, in which Sonangol will be entitled to an 8% stake in until 2032. So it's when you think about 8%, right? You think okay, so 8%. It doesn't sound like a whole lot, but whenever you're talking about two FPSOs sitting in there at 8%,
That's right.
that's a lot of money. That's a
Yeah.
lot of money for the country. So, actually, to be quite honest, Arvy, I think 8% was kind of low. I mean, what? I was thinking more like 10, something like this, maybe.
I think
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I hear. I totally get where you're coming from, but I also think when you look at the commitment and the historical kind of contractual aspect of BP's presence in Angola, you kind of feel like BP. I mean, so when I started on the project, this particular project, it was 15 years ago. And at that time, BP was the only country in the world that had drilled below 2,000 feet, I think it was, for deep water drilling. And even that, at that time, about 14, 15 years ago, it was the talk of the town. Everybody wanted to have the same play as BP. What have they done in Angola? So I think BP's got a very strong position in Angola, and I think they've done a hell of a lot of kind of CSR and local content work in country as well. So I'm thinking that you're right. That 8% sounds low, but I think if you look at the grander scheme of things,
what is it offset by over the last 15 years too?
Exactly. Yeah. And we've got to really think about that. But I agree with you. 8% sounds a little low, but again, over the last 15, 16 years, it's big commitment.
That's why you're here, to show a little bit extra light into, because by just reading that, the normal person would be like 8%. But it's good that you're here to show some of that insight. So it's great.
Sure.
But it looks like they also signed 2 additional memorandums regarding offshore exploration. So it looks like they may do a little bit more work than just development work. So interesting.
Yeah.
Good for Sonangol and good for Angola. Go to work, boys.
Absolutely.
Maersk firms up 2 rig contracts for Suriname. Looks like it was previously renounced. I'm just going to give you this contract. I don't know. It was it was previously announced a bit back, but Total was still working on getting the final commitment to Maersk for the project. But it looks like they came through with their award, and it's going to be a duration of 500 days.
Okay. For
these 2 rigs. So that would be the Developer and the Valiant, which the Developer is a 6th generation semi, and the Valiant is a 6th generation drill ship. Well, they're calling it 7 here, but yeah. So anyway, it was delivered in 2013, but that's good. That's 500 days work for Maersk, as well as Total. That's going to be an exploration and appraisal project in Suriname's Block 58, and has various extension options. Blah blah blah. It looks like a good project to be on.
Yeah, and can I just say,
huge project.
I think Total have really kind of like revamped. I don't know what they've done. I'm super impressed with Total's performance. I mean, this is in Suriname. I was reading.
They've sold a bunch of stuff, Arvy, so they have a lot of cash to spend. They're trying to, exactly. They're like, we have this cash to spend. We got to do something with it.
You're absolutely right. But I think this is their 4th largest discovery in Suriname. And in saying that, this year they took over Area 4, is it, in Mozambique? So I'm really quite super impressed with Total's performance right now. Really, really impressed, to be honest with you.
I've always been a Total. I've always liked Total from the times that I worked with them as well. So good company and good people.
Mm.
But good luck to Total and Maersk here in Suriname. So
sure.
And then you got the next week, we're going to go right back into Total again. Here comes Total and Apache
Okay.
This this find here in Suriname. I'm just full of euphemisms today. Okay, so Total and Apache have made a significant find in Block 58. So now this contract following up for Maersk follows right into this one with Block 58, in which they're partners there with Apache on. This well was drilled by the Sam Croft drill ship with Noble.
Okay.
And I think the ongoing development or the ongoing exploration in Block 58 is what spurred this other group to be awarded some contracts. But the well was drilled 725. It counted a total of 63 meters net pay of hydrocarbon, comprised of 58 meters of net black volatile oil and gas pay and good quality. Okay, so yeah, that was a really good well there for them. I think Total assumed operatorship of Block 58 on January the 1st, 2021 with a 50% working stake. So again,
it's a really good play for them anyway, as a 50% ownership. So that's really good.
Yeah, I think the idea there is they're trying to get in and create some architecture using Maersk and these two other ships after they did the find here.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's great. That's great.
Super.
All right. Anybody got any final comments? Mohammed, I'm sorry I don't have a lot of information on the Kuwait stuff, and I tend to, if it doesn't come straight to me or directly to me, then I typically don't have an eye on stuff for Kuwait. So my apologies. Let's see.
Any other questions?
Yeah, let me see here. I'm going through. I think that was it for today.
Okay, super. I just wanted to say, actually, funnily enough, I've got to share some messages with you, Greg. I've been
absolutely
inundated with so many great comments about our show, and people have actually given me ideas of topics they want to discuss, and so really pleased and happy about that. So I'm happy that we're keeping everybody engaged and people can give their input as well. Thank you.
Hey, I'm glad that people just enjoy coming and checking it out. Like,
yeah,
the topic West Africa has always been, well, there's this work in West Africa, this work. So there's not a whole lot of resources out there that actually, like, you see an article here or something there, but there's not a lot of resources out there to where you can get information from. So it's good to just even have, just a courtesy chat about it. And that's all we're doing, is having a chat about ongoing projects. And that's where it's really important, where people just say, hey, well, if you don't know what's going on in West Africa, just drop in there and check Arvy and Greg out.
Yeah,
here in a week, and for 15, 20 minutes. And hey, today it was 27. So
wow, fantastic.
Yeah. So
yeah, no, it's been I've as I said before, I was really super happy with all the comments that came through. So yeah, thank you all, guys, the audience.
Well, Arvy, you can thank all of the people that has made comments and things that want to bring things to the show and different topics. I'm more than happy. Anybody got anything they want to talk about out there, they can feel free to shoot us an email. There's myself and Arvy on all the different social media channels, and you can feel glad to get in contact with us, or be happy to get in contact with us and shoot us a message.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right. I think that's a wrap.
Is that it for us? Yeah.
That's it. So that's us next week, Thursday, back at the regular scheduled time.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Had to change for some flights this time, so I appreciate everybody's kindness, and don't give me too much trouble there.
Yeah. Okay, good job.
Have a wonderful weekend, everybody. Take care, and we'll speak to you next week.
See you later. Bye, everyone. Bye, Greg. See you.
Bye. You've been watching West Africa Weekly, a live series brought to you by Riglinks and Arvy Core Nahar. Your hosts have been Greg and Arvy. For sponsorship opportunities, send us an email at info@riglinks.com. Tune in next Thursday at 8 a.m. CST for another live episode.